There are so many millions of wines out there, it is very useful to place them into categories. The first category we are going to learn about are table wines. This category is probably the largest and most diverse, as it includes almost all wines that are not sparkling, fortified, or extremely sweet. Table wines will make up the majority of wines you see and serve. In this lesson, we are going to learn about what a table wine is, and then see if we can break up the categories into smaller sections to help us better understand the world of wine. The category of table wine is a little old-fashioned, but it is quite useful for us to divide wine into categories. If a wine is called a table wine, we immediately know it is not sparkling or fortified. This means it will have an alcohol level of 15% or less and have no bubbles. Because table wine is such a broad category itself, we are going to have to define it further. We are going to do this by understanding sugar levels in table wines and the difference between varietal wines and blended wines. Let's start by understanding sweetness in wines. We already know that during fermentation, sugar in the squeezed grape juice is converted into carbon dioxide and alcohol by yeast. Can you remember the two main ways in which fermentation finishes? The one is when the alcohol level is too high for the yeast to survive, and the other is when all of the fermentable sugar has been consumed. When a wine has completed fermentation, there is always some sugar left behind. Sometimes this is because fermentation has stopped before all the sugar has been converted, or because it is a type of sugar that the yeasts cannot consume. Can you remember what we call this sugar? Residual sugar. Well done. Residual sugar is measured in grams per liter. Wines after fermentation that have anywhere between 1 and 10 grams per liter of sugar are considered dry. In wine terms, dry is the opposite of sweet. As there is more residual sugar, so the wines are known as medium dry, medium sweet, and sweet. The rules for defining how dry a wine is change from country to country, but generally we can say that wines with a residual sugar level of 5 grams per liter or less are dry wines. Remember that because acidity balances with sugar, a wine with higher levels of residual sugar but very high acidity will taste dry. So we now know that we can have table wines that are either dry, medium sweet, or sweet. But this doesn't tell us anything about the flavor of the wine. For that, we need to understand more about varieties. Let's understand the difference between varietal and blended wines. Varietal wines are wines that are made with only one grape variety. These wines will usually have the name of the variety printed on the label. In the next two subjects, we will learn about different grape varieties and discover the different characteristics of the varietal wines they make. Traditionally in Europe, winemakers did not put the grape variety on the label, but rather the name of the producer and the place where the wine was from. For example, wines from Burgundy in France are mainly made from Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. But these are not printed on the label. Instead, the name of the villages or areas where the grapes are grown are printed. Today, many wines from Europe still do this, but producers from Australia, South Africa, New Zealand, and North and South America place the variety on the label. Varietal wines appeal to wine drinkers because by understanding the variety, they have a good idea of the wine they are going to get. The opposite of varietal wines are blended wines. These wines are made by combining wines made from different varieties. Winemakers who choose to make blended wines are less concerned with the flavor of a single variety, but look to add complexity by combining the flavors of many. Some classic blends are Sauvignon and Semillon, Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot, and Cabernet Sauvignon and Shiraz. As you understand varieties in the next subject, remember that each one can be combined to create a new and interesting wine. A winemaker is able to create balance and complexity by blending the right varieties with each other. In this lesson, we have learned a little about how table wines can be described in terms of sweetness and whether they are made from one variety or a blend of many. Remember these ideas as you learn about different types of grapes in the next two subjects.